The time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby,
light my fire.
come on, baby, light
My fire.
Try to set the
Night on fire. Alright, hey, welcome to Tribulation 515 2011. We have reached day 848, my friends. It is a Tuesday out here in San Jose, California, and the devil's on fire, my friends. Mount Diablo. My heart and my prayers go out to all the people. I took a journey to Mount Diablo, finally. It was like about 2 weeks ago, and I meant to stop by some friends, and I couldn't do it. I got kind of lost up on the mountain. But I tell you one thing, driving around that whole mountain up there, everything, the trees, the grass, everything was dry as could be, and it's mostly just some really well-off people up there, really rich folks, but it doesn't really matter, rich or poor, you don't want fires destroying people's livelihoods. But Diablo is on fire, my friends, and they say the temperatures are going to get to 100 degrees today, which is, we've been having just absolutely spectacular, awesome weather. Even yesterday it was blazing hot, While the rest of the country is experiencing winter, here in San Jose, we're experiencing the heat. If this is your first time tuning in, this is my personal witness and testimony to the tribulation that is literally unfolding right in front of our eyes. The world appears to be spiraling downward into chaos. But all is not as it appears. I'm just going to kind of go through, man, there's so much happening right now. I'm just trying not to let this video go forever. But, space, the final frontier. I'm hoping to rent Star Trek today, Into the Darkness. All the movie titles are Into the Dark. Dark World, Darkness. And, it's a perception. Whether you see darkness or see light. Or some of us, I can see both. But NASA, you could view NASA in total glory, or there's a dark side to NASA, I've kind of, that's where the conspiratorial side of life comes in. So I kind of walk that path a little bit, because I don't think all is as it appears with NASA and our government. Even with the moon, like what the heck happened up on the moon? But space, suspicious observers, I watch his space report, weather report every day, and there can be no doubt, some people want to say it's global warming and blame humans and people who use gasoline, but there can be no doubt. There is just mind-blowing change happening to our planet and to our solar system. And our sun is the source of most of that change. The sun is about ready to reverse its magnetic poles. The magnetic shield of the Earth is weaker than it has ever been. That's kind of what Suspicious Observer points out in his report for today. But there's been a whole bunch of earthquakes. There's no sunspots. We're at a maximum, and there's no sunspots. But there's huge coronal holes, which shoot out solar wind. But we could all agree, weather, whether you call it extreme weather, global warming, global freezing, they just said there's more ice than ever in the Arctic. So it looks like there's an ice age going on. But the weather is just not normal. It's not normal here in San Jose. It's abnormally awesome, but today with a fire like what's up on Mount Diablo, 100-degree weather is not going to be so nice. But all around the world, earthquakes, volcanoes, flooding, storms. And throughout the solar system, all sorts of crazy stuff. Comets, you know, the sun blasting off CMEs. Scientists and a lot of people, when they look at space, you can either see the glory or you can see the darkness. And a lot of people just see the darkness, and they will they will say that space is just absolute randomness, chaos. That out of the chaos came forth life on Earth, you know, random chance. I don't see it that way. I view space in the universe as the finger, the handiwork of God himself. And it's perfect order, not chaos. So all these things happening in the solar system, you know, whether it's stars coming through or comets or whatever the heck's going on, it's the finger of God, the finely tuned machine of time. That if your eyes are open and you're tapped into maybe a higher heavenly circuit, you may have some level of understanding of these things that people whose eyes have been darkened, that only see chaos, you know, that there's no finger of God involved here. You know, but anyway, NASA and the moon, whatever they did up there, who knows? But on the 6th, they launched the Lady satellite, which is going to go up there and go into orbit, and it's going to look at the atmosphere. That's another one of those like mystery things about the moon, because for years I even asked NASA engineers, I said, the moon doesn't have all the same minerals like iron and air and everything that Earth should have? And they're like, no, the moon is just a big dust ball. You know, that's why people thought it was made of cheese, because it's made of dust. That didn't make no sense to me neither. So that's kind of what's being revealed lately, is that there's a lot more up at the moon than just dust or cheese. But the Lady satellite had been launched by NASA, you know. All right, the devil's on fire. Today is 9/9/2013. It's a Tuesday. You know, over the weekend, you know, it was the first weekend of NFL action, and it's amazing because I gotta admit, you know, I wanted to just kind of take my mind off of the big picture for a second, so I relaxed and watched a couple of football games. But it's amazing because you can just tune out everything. You know, you can go into your bubbleized, hedged-in existence where you can just sit in your home and watch football and have a good time. And, you know, you tune out the weather, war, whatever, you know. I invited a homeless person over to my house and cooked him a meal. And that was one of the things I was talking to him about as we were watching football. Is I told him a couple of times how I had been way deeper into sports, kind of idolizing and worshiping sports. So I had kind of backed off and pulled myself out of that. But without a doubt, you know, sports, NFL football is probably at the top of the heap. But Americans, you know, there's many things that we can worship, idolize. And what happens when you do that, these carnal things, is it shuts your eye off to the greater glory of God and those heavenly things, you know, because all your time and focus and energy is now focused on this carnal thing, you know. And it could be money, it could be making a name for yourself, it could be idolizing sports and just loving to do sports, but it could be so many other things, you know. But anyway, along that line of thought, they announced you know, we're at a point in time, right, where you could either be looking backwards in the past or you could be looking forward in the future. But it's an ending of one age, a beginning of another age. But who has the vision looking into the future? Me, I like God's vision. So I'm trying to see what he sees and follow his will and his vision. But there's a lot of people that have vision out there. Our president, you know, Barack Obama, he's a guy, when we elect him to be our president, we want him to have vision, and I want him to personally be walking with God in that vision. Right now, his vision is that we should bomb the heck out of Syria. But speaking of vision, you know, when you have really good vision, it's 2020 vision. So today, they announced the 2020 Olympics, which, you know, that's about 7 years in the future, but it's going back to Tokyo, Japan. So they're all celebrating over in Tokyo, jumping for joy, saying life is good. You know, their vision now is set for the future. It's the glory of the Olympics being brought back to Tokyo. And they can take their eye off of Fukushima sitting over there just leaking radioactive water, you know, and destroying the Pacific Ocean, you know, and bringing a disaster of unparalleled dimensions to the planet. But who cares about that? Let's celebrate the Olympics, the glory of man running down a track and winning a gold medal. And, Tokyo's like, oh, the Olympics will rebuild our image, our name, and make us a great city, And what's interesting, I use a couple of websites, news sites. I look at the Drudge Report. But I use a website called The Watchers and one called the Extinction Protocol. But the Watchers they both, Extinction Protocol and the Watchers, do articles on Fukushima, because you won't find this stuff in the mainstream news. They're just trying to cover it all up, darken the eyesight. But what's amazing is they're talking about all this radiation leaking out, but then they're talking about, in the same article, the amazing healing properties of bentonite clay. My name is Bent, I found so many things with bent, the bent pyramid, the bent bridge, the bent fort. But bentonite clay. It says healing clays have been traditionally used as natural medicines for mankind for thousands of years and are still used by regular people around the world for their healing and health promoting properties. Bentonite is one of the best of those healing clays and is part of a class of clay minerals known as smectite. S-M-E-C-T-I-T-E. Bentonite clay is made up of flat rectangular particles which, when hydrated, have a powerful negative charge, giving them an amazing ability to pull to their surface and hold on to positively charged ions, similar to the way a magnet will pull and hold on to iron filings. Bentonite! I'm going to get a hold of some of that stuff. Yeah. And they say, I think you can eat it, but you can probably just smear it on you or whatever, But, man, once again, bentonite. I like the sound of that. But a little bit of a rainbow of news, bentonite, the healing properties, while mixed into the horrific news of Fukushima just leaking out. And even when they were talking about Tokyo getting the Olympics for 2020, they were pointing back to the tsunami and all the damage and the 40,000 people that disappeared off the face of the planet in the blink of an eye. But they didn't really mention the ongoing Fukushima disaster, which was also a result of that same tsunami. But, the sun, all the crazy stuff going on up there, once again, people can, I'd say the majority of people probably view it as just random chaos, but I don't. I view it as a machine. Therefore, time is unraveling, things are moving forward, the signs are in the sky, Mercury, Suspicious Observer was showing how Mercury left an imprint on one of those satellites out there, but, there's a lot of alignments happening right now, that are just mind-blowing. But, it's all about vision and eyesight and, the third eye, the pineal gland. Extinction Protocol has an article called The Calcifier of the Soul, and it's talking about fluoride in the water and how it calcifies our pineal gland and shuts it down. I won't bore you with all the pineal gland stuff, because some people either believe, and understand it, and their eyes have been opened, or there's a lot of people walk around with, darkened eyesight. But there was a quote. It says, the pineal gland has been a subject of much interest since ancient times, and what they were talking about in the article is just they're reclassifying the pineal gland. It's not just something that puts out melatonin and other antitoxins. It does a lot more than that, because it's a light receptor. But it says, Galen described it in the 3rd century. The philosopher René Descartes in 1596 identified the pineal gland as the seat of the soul. His explanation for this conclusion is quite interesting, and this is quoting René Descartes. I'm going to read his quote. My view is that this gland, the pineal gland, is the principal seat of the soul and the place in which all of our thoughts are formed. The reason I believe this is that I cannot find any part of the brain except this, which is not double. Since we see only one thing with 2 eyes and hear only one voice with 2 ears, and in short have never more than one thought at a time, it must necessarily be the case that the impressions which enter by the 2 eyes or by the 2 ears, and so on, unite with each other in some part of the body before being considered by the soul. And now it is impossible to find any such place in the whole head except this gland. Moreover, it is situated in the most suitable possible place for this purpose, in the middle of all the concavities, and it is supported and surrounded by the little branches of the carotid arteries, which bring the spirits into the brain. Glorious, my friends. So, I'm not going to divert it to talking about the pineal gland, but the pineal gland is at play here, because some people's pineal glands are lighting up, and others are not. So, finally, it is the visions, most news sites, the Fox News site, Drudge, whatever, they're talking about that people all around the earth, are saying they're having visions, especially about end-time visions, about the destruction of Syria and Iran and Israel, because when you look in, whether it's the Quran or the Bible, there's stuff in there about cities being destroyed and wars taking place. But our president seems to be hell-bent on firing missiles at Syria. He's going to Congress today to give a speech, a talk to Congress. His Secretary of Defense, John Kerry, was giving a second red line, an ultimatum to Assad. Assad is saying he's innocent and he will fire back. There seems to be a disconnect between Obama and the rest of his staff. Even though they're all saying let's fire missiles, it's kind of like yes, no, there's a deadline, there isn't a deadline, there's a red line, there isn't a red line. Not a good place to be when you're playing with fire. And that's what our president is doing, is he's playing with the matches, His foreign policy goes from one of leading from behind, which is a distortion, to his new foreign policy is to hit the beehive with a baseball bat and see if any bees come out to sting us, And he's sitting there telling us, no bees are going to come out. We're going to whack the hive, teach the bees a lesson, but don't worry about getting stung. All right, hey, that's pretty much what's going on with the tribulation over at Operation End Times. I'm going to try and get to part 7 of the Your Jobs. Jobs is in Steve Jobs and Job's series, and wrapping it up because we got plenty of other stuff to move on to. But the devil's on fire, my friends. I've been engaging several people that kind of have this shadowy stuff that they're pushing on everybody. But the time has come to take a stand, not to back down. So that's where I'm at, because I don't normally go after people. And I'm not going after people. These people came my way, But, once again, it's having your mind right. Preparing the way, the path, which is your mind, Because you're either going to get stuck in the past, get turned to a pillar of salt, or you're going to move forward. But those moving forward, you have a choice to manifest one way or the other way, to a shadow or to light. But you got to have your mind right. You got to know what you value, Do you value earthly things or do you value heavenly things? And if you have no idea what heavenly things are, then you have work to do to get to a level of understanding and discernment that you can understand those heavenly things and see how important they are and how unimportant the carnal, earthly things are, But that's part of what I'm discussing over there, because jobs, earning money, the house with the white picket fence, those are all things that the mind of man focuses on, and the mind of man fools himself to think that this is order, this is perfection, the Olympics, but as our world is literally, changing in front of us, and the things that we thought would last forever are being destroyed in the blink of an eye, you need to have your eyes open to see that the future, the vision for that future is one that God has to lay out for us. There is no city we can build of our own means, that is going to stand the test of time. All right. Hey, this is a Tribulation 5/15/2011. Hopefully they'll get that fire out on Mount Diablo, and that vote in the Congress is getting ever closer. So let's just all pray that our Congress people make a stand and vote no, because it's a hella stupid idea. That's just the truth. All right, God bless you all. Think positive.